So it's good to be back. I have been roaming one more time. This time I was in California for the month of February because my mother did not raise no dummy. And I got out of here just in the nick of time. Someone said to me, "Aren't you?" I said, "No, my plane left before and it's coming back afterward." Because I didn't share with too many people what the weather was like because I really didn't want to, except one person. She was going on. I said, "Well, the weather here, it's sunny and 70, but don't feel too bad about it." I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel guilty at all about being gone. It was purely a coincidence. But you know what? There are no coincidences in life, right? So it's interesting because we're talking about spiritual home, and one of the reasons I went back to California was to help out a friend who was going away, and she said to me, "Would you like to come to California?" She says, "I can't pay you anything, but you can have my condo and my car." And I was like, I'm on a plane. A condo and a car in Southern California, 8 minutes from the beach. I'll take it. So off I went, and when I was there, I got to speak twice at the church where I had been the minister for years in Southern California, and there were all these people there, and it felt great. I also got to be there with my other spiritual family in recovery. My sponsor was there. It was just wonderful, and I really thought a lot about, wherever we go, there we are. And wherever we go, there God is. So wherever we go, we're really home. And for some people like myself who has moved a lot, the spiritual home has changed because I realize that it does go with me. And different places. My sister always says to me, it amazes me how you know so many people all over the country. You say, "Oh, I'm going here." I said, well, A, I moved a lot. B, people I know have moved a lot. C, I lived in an RV for 2 years traveling, so I met a lot of people all over the country. So yes, I know a lot of people all over the country. But it's interesting how certain places feel more like home than others. And I'm very blessed because I have this spiritual home, I have a spiritual home in California, I have all these places where I feel at peace. But if you know me, you know I'm a movie buff and B, a gospel song buff. So there is this song where every time I hear it, I gotta take wrong glasses, and it's called "Church, Take Me Back." There was a time that I swore I would never go back. I was blind to the truth, didn't know what I had. I was running, I was searching, but every place I turned for healing left me more broken than the last. Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, to the faith that's in my bones. And then it goes on, but I thought to myself, that is what a spiritual home is like. And it's interesting that no matter how long we're gone from a spiritual home, it's still a spiritual home. So I got introduced to Unity when I lived in Miami, Florida, one of the many places I lived. And while I was there, and I was going to church there, my daughter-in-law was pregnant with my granddaughter, who's now 21, but anyway, and they thought there was something wrong with the baby, and they were going to have to do an emergency cesarean. Now, my daughter-in-law and her husband, my son, and her entire family are all atheists. So I said to my son, I said, "I know you don't believe in God, but I do, so I am going to ask the people at church to pray for her." So I did, and the baby was born healthy and fine. And it's interesting because my son, the atheist, said to me, he goes, "Well, I don't believe in a God, and I don't believe that prayer can change anything." He says, "I think what happens is that when enough people have a consciousness that is the same, that they can change things." And I went, "Oh, wow. I think they call that prayer in some circles." So anyway, take it now. Years go by. I'm no longer living in Miami, and my granddaughter, the one who they had been praying for, was 11 years old, and her dog died. Now, she's being brought up by atheists, and she says to her mother, she says, I have to believe there's something other than this. I can't believe that Stanley is just gone. So her mother is like, what do I say to this kid? So she calls me up and she says, what do I say to my kid? I said, well, obviously she's searching for something. You know, maybe you need to take her somewhere for her to explore for herself rather than take for whatever you say. So she says, well, I don't know where to take her. So I said, well, you know, I would suggest the Unity Church that I went to. Because it's unity, so it's not, you know, filled with sin and you're going to hell and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, I said, and it meets in a Jewish synagogue. So there's no crucifix that she's got to see Jesus on the cross and all of that, which, you know, if you haven't been brought up with it, could be pretty scary. So she said, okay. So she goes to the church on Sunday, and somebody finds out that this is my granddaughter that they had prayed for. Well, they all went nuts over her. They're like, oh my God, you're our miracle child. We prayed for you, and look at you. You're so beautiful. You're so smart. And she felt so special, you know. And then when they started singing, because we know how important music is, she just had tears in her eyes. Unfortunately, her mother didn't. And she went back one time and she never went back again because she was too young to go on her own. But the thing is that we are all born, really, with a connection. And it can be battered into us that there is none, but it is always there. And that child who had lost her dog knew there was something else. Knew there was something else, even though no one had ever told her that except her crazy grandmother. You know, because one time I was watching her and her younger brother, and I was watching them because their grandfather, their mother's father, was in for serious operation. And I was sitting in bed and I was meditating, and my grandson said to me, you know, Grandma, what are you doing? So I said, well, I'm praying, because I thought it was easier than saying I'm meditating. And he was going to a little nursery school at a Baptist school. And he goes, oh, Grandma, that's not how you pray. This is how you pray. And he gets on his knees and he puts his hands in a little prayer thing and he closes his eyes. He has no idea what words you would say, but that was prayer. I said, you know, Ryan, you're right. You can pray that way, or you can just pray and be in silence and hold a positive thought in your mind. So even these kids who grow up without anything had some idea that there was something more. And when we go to a place where we feel at home, where it is feeding our very soul, it is really important that we understand that this is a natural thing that we all want. Think about your own home. It may not have been great when you were growing up. Some of us have had not pleasant situations when we were kids. Some of us have grown up in great homes, but there's something familiar about it. And one of the things I want to talk about today is one of the things that we do in our homes is we take care of our homes, right? I mean, if you don't pay the mortgage, you're not going to have your home very long. I know I've done that, and I didn't have it very long. And if you don't pay the light bill, guess what? You're not going to have any lights. I know that for a fact. And so there's all this information that we need to support it. So I came up with this idea, and I just want to talk a little bit about, because I think we don't understand about it, was this unexpected income that we were going to start. People who wanted to would start tithing on their unexpected income. Not so much because we want to support the church, though we should want to support the church if it's our spiritual home, but because we realize that when we live in an abundant universe that is always trying to provide us whatever we need. And if you don't think we live in an abundant universe, then just think about the blizzard. and the abundance of snow. You know, we live in an abundant universe. Come spring, we will see an abundance of green and flowers and all this stuff. And so the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is always trying to provide for us. But so often, we don't pay any attention to that. We're so busy looking at the negative, because I share this a lot. You know, we spend 90% of our time thinking about the 10% of our life that doesn't work. What would happen if we spent 90% of our time thinking about the 90% that did work? I guarantee you would be a lot happier. You know, when people ask you how you are and you go, oh, well, let me tell you, I broke a nail today. Well, you know, in the whole bit of the universe, breaking a nail isn't that big of a deal. But it could be something else, too. It'll be like, well, in a week, this is going to happen. And I always say, well, in 2 days, you could get hit by a bus. And then you don't have to worry about what's going to happen in a week. I mean, we have our pain in advance. We think about what may happen, and not only then do we suffer because something happens bad, we suffer all the time that we're thinking about what might happen. So now we have wasted a lot of time. So we live in this abundant universe. And I have found over my journey that when I understand that, and I open myself up to the abundance in the universe, it comes effortlessly. It comes in ways which are impossible to explain how many ways it comes. So what happens is our two biggest fears is money and time. That's a common thing. We're either afraid we don't have enough time or whatever, or we're not going to have enough money. They are commonly the two biggest fears. And so a lot of times we don't want to give because we're afraid we're not going to receive. And we need our money to pay our rent because we could lose the roof over our head, or our light bill because they could shut the lights off and all of that. And so we don't want to give because we don't know what's coming our way. The idea of the unexpected income is money you are not expecting. You don't have it in a budget. You're not planning anything for it. And when you open yourself up to receiving it, it happens. Folks, this has happened so much in my life, I can't even explain. So I'm thinking, well, it's happened a lot of times. Just recently. So we're doing the unexpected income here, and I speak at another church in Pittsburgh, and we're doing it there. And 2 weeks ago, I'm in California, and I have a client there, and she said, I know I'm getting to the point in my life, my birthday's coming up, it's St. Patty's Day. You know, I may have been born Jewish, but the alcoholic in me wanted to be born in St. Patrick's Day. So I waited. My mother went in the hospital on the 16th, but I was going to be born on the 17th because that's where my peers were. Anyway, so 17th is coming, and I'm not getting any younger. I turned 83 on the 17th. Wow. So I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm running out of time. Because time, right, is one of our biggest fears. And I have a bucket list. And I'm really got to get this bucket list done. And I had talked to her. She travels all over the world, and I had talked to her about it. I said, one of the things on my bucket list is Italy. Since I was a kid, since I was in high school, I always wanted to go to Italy. I think at the time because of spaghetti and pizza. But I just thought there was something about Italy. And I never said anything. 2 weeks ago, she says to me, I want you to experience Italy while you can. So I am giving you $5,000 for you to go to Italy and possibly Greece. And I am like, here I am in this unexpected income thing, and I just received $5,000. Now that means I promised to tithe 10%, which is $500. And I got to split it up because I got two churches. So I'm thinking, oh, but you gave me $5,000 to travel with. If I take $500 away, the thought comes out, I will only have $4,500. Now think about how ridiculous this is. I have had no money, and now I have $4,500, and I'm complaining because I have to give $500 away. The insanity of that kind of thinking still often boggles my mind. Because the fact of the matter is, I am going to Italy because I have $4,500, and I am going to find a trip, and I am going to do it for that $4,500. And so I have found this in my life, that it is, especially when I open myself up to receive, the universe cannot help but give. And it happens in ways we can't understand. So I have so many examples that would boggle your mind, but I'm going to tell you one. So we had our retreat center, and things were not going well, to say the least. We had just opened it up. We weren't having any retreats. We had a mortgage. I had a payment on my truck, and things were not looking good. In fact, it looked like we weren't going to be able to pay the mortgage, the electric, or anything else. And I said to my husband, who never, ever feared about money, and he never feared about money. And it wasn't because he had a lot, he had none, but he never feared about it. And so I said, we're going to lose the farm, because we used to call it the farm. We're going to lose the farm because we don't have the money to pay the mortgage. And we're going to lose my truck, because I'm not going to be able to make the payment. And he said, well, let's think about what the worst can be. You know, I know that sounds like negative, but sometimes when we think about the worst, we realize that the worst is never as bad as we imagine it. So he says, so we lose the farm, we have no home. He says, you lose your truck, you don't have it. But we have my truck. He had a beat-up old truck. No one wanted his truck. I said, but we have all these animals. He said, no big deal. We put the dogs in the truck inside with us. We put the cats in crates in the back of the truck. Then we have a long rope, and attached to the rope will go our cows, our pony, our goats, our geese, you know, and we'll just take down off the road. We'll go down the road, and we'll have everybody, and we'll be fine, because everyone will be with us. And I started laughing because I could see Beverly Hillbillies. I was going down the road in this beat-up old truck with this line of animals behind us. Like the geese are really going to go tied up. Have you ever had geese? They are like minds of their own. And the goats, we renamed our goats Beavis and Butthead because to describe what the goats were like. But anyway, I started laughing. And I realized, you know what? If we're all together, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. I am going to trust that it's all going to be fine. A week, 2 weeks later, I go to the mailbox, and there's a letter from an attorney. And I open up the letter, and it says, so-and-so has died and has left you $50,000 and his condo. And I'm like, who is this person? I don't even know this person. And I said to my husband, who is this guy that left us $50,000 and his condo? And he says, oh, he comes to meetings here. And I guess because if you know about recovery programs, you can't give that kind of money to them. And he was trying to figure out where he could give the money to. And he thought about us, and he left it to us. I don't even know this person. I certainly could never have expected a check for $50,000, which got us through all the time we needed to get through until we started having retreats. So folks, I know that this works. I know it, and I would bet everything I have on the fact that it works, because it is a spiritual law that when we are open to receive, the universe gives us what it is we need. Not what we want, because the Rolling Stones was right. We don't get what we want, we get what we need, and it always happens. So if you haven't, I have my little envelope, the colored envelopes is the unexpected income. I have my check in here because as soon as I receive, I give, because I want to keep this going in the universe. Give, receive, give, receive, give, receive. And so if you're not partaking in that, you're not losing anything, folks. This is money you do not have. It is a birthday gift. It is finding $1 on the sidewalk. It is whatever. It is amazing where you find it. So I want you to close your eyes a minute, because this is our spiritual home. And just like you take care of your home, this is where we come to feel the very presence of God. This is a holy place. The people here are family. And we come here to grow and expand in our spiritual consciousness. And that isn't always easy. The longer that I'm on this path, the more I know that the road gets narrower. And the path sometimes gets more difficult. But anytime I put something between me and God, I am breaking that connection. And so I open myself up to anything that helps me realize wherever I am, God is. And all is well. And so it is. Thank you, God.